Good afternoon. I want to begin first by thanking all of you for your help yesterday with respect to Everett. Although we don't have any new news with respect to that, the help that you've given us in getting that information out has really generated a lot of interest, a lot of calls, things that we're following up. So I'm grateful for that. Today I'm joined by Assistant District Attorney Chris Tarrant and Tim Ferreter, Detective Lieutenant Paul Bowman, and Billerica Deputy Police Chief Roy Frost. It has now been almost 2 years since the fatal crash at the Linway Auto Auction in Billerica, which claimed the lives of 5 people: Elliot Rowlands, Brenda Lopez, Pantaleon Santos, and Lizandra Aponte, Ruben Espaillat. We are very aware that this has been a long and painful road for the families and the loved ones of the 5 people who died that day, as well as the numerous people who were injured. After an extensive investigation into the crash that occurred on May 3rd, we are today announcing that both Linway Auto Auction Incorporated and its president and owner, James Lamb, have each been charged with 5 counts of manslaughter. This marks the first time that our office has charged a corporation with manslaughter. The indictments allege that the company and Mr. Lamb are criminally responsible for having consciously failed to take those appropriate actions that would have prevented this tragedy. As the person responsible for Linway's day-to-day operations, Mr. Lamb was aware of the shortfalls and the safety measures that took place at the facility, which included a 2014 incident where a worker had been seriously injured. He did not implement the safety measures that would have protected the pedestrians mingling and maneuvering between and around the moving vehicles, as they were on the day of the crash, as they are seen in the photograph over here of the inside of that facility. On May 3rd at approximately 10:11 in the morning, a 2006 Jeep Grand Cherokee, which is pictured over here on the bottom photograph, was being operated by an unlicensed driver, an employee of Linway Auto Auction. It entered the auction showroom, and drove into the designated pedestrian area, striking several people before crashing into a cinder block wall. Based on a review of the video surveillance of the crash, investigators were able to determine that this Jeep, as it pulled to the entrance on the apron between the parking lot inside the facility, rapidly accelerated, leaving what's depicted as the red vehicle travel lane and passing into the blue pedestrian lane. We further determined that the inaction of Mr. Lamb as the president, acting on behalf of the auction company, was the cause of this fatal crash. Although the driver was unlicensed, operation inside the auction house was not a public way. Therefore, he cannot be charged with driving offenses. The only other offense available to charge the driver would have been with manslaughter. We have determined, based on our investigation, that we would be unable to meet our burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt as to the recklessness of that driver. So therefore, he has not been charged with manslaughter. This investigation was a joint effort between our office, the Billerica Police Department, Massachusetts State Police, the CARS unit, Crash Reconstruction Unit of the State Police, and OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. I'm going to turn it over briefly to Deputy Chief Frost, and then we'll take your questions.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to just express the condolences of the Billerica Police to the families that were involved. Obviously, this has been a very difficult 2 years for them, and I hope that this helps in some small fashion. I can also thank the Billerica Police and the State Police for all the hard work that they did on this case. I was at the scene as well. It was a terrible scene, and I know that it definitely impacted not only the investigators, but the employees and anybody present who was there to experience what had happened. So again, we express our condolences to the families.
Thank you. Question?
The man driving that car indicated that he thought there was an issue with the car. I don't know if you had found any evidence of that in the investigation.
That piece of the investigation is a separate and apart from what we're looking at with respect to that. I expect that'll be litigated in other pieces of litigation ongoing with respect to this.
And so it's possible right now that people are driving there without licenses inside?
Yes.
Is that something you feel needs to change in terms of the
Well,
law?
the statute provides that you are allowed to operate without a valid driver's license when you are not on a public way. That covers a wide variety of places, including the inside of the building.
Can you just kind of talk a little bit more about what you allege Mr. Lamb did to not make the place safe where this accident happened?
Following the incident, we are aware that OSHA was involved at the auction house on several occasions. Following the incident in 2014, recommendations were made to Mr. Lamb, particularly with respect to providing actual barriers between what was later determined to be this driving lane and the pedestrian lane, so that people would not be crossing back and forth. The way the auction house works is the vehicle is brought in, they are in a line, they move very rapidly. For less than a minute, each car is showcased while people can bid on that. That car continues on, it's almost like a conveyor belt. The next cars come up. At the same time, people are making their way, often many people, are making their way through the auction house, looking at cars, making a determination as to whether they want to bid. Mr. Lamb had been advised by OSHA after the 2014 incident as to things that should be put in place. He signed a certification with OSHA that those changes would be made. It is our allegation that as a result of the failure to do that in the way that was recommended, there was a situation presented on May 3rd that resulted in this crash.
In charging a corporation, what type of penalties could be faced? Are they solely to Mr. Lamb or also to the company itself?
Under the statute as it was then in effect, the maximum penalty for a corporation on a charge of manslaughter was $1,000 per count, so potentially $5,000. Since then, that statute has been amended so that a corporation would now face a penalty of $250,000 per count. But we will obviously be bound by the statute in effect at the time of the crash. The penalty for manslaughter to an individual, to Mr. Lamb, is a maximum of 20 years in state prison per count.
And he is still operating now?
It's my understanding that the business may still be open, but I don't know how, there's some process where the company is being sold, is my understanding. Thank you.